Before we begin, I would like to thank the crossover guy for his suggestion. Thanks a lot, dude.
Savage Opress was born on Dathomir roughly 54 years before the Battle of Yavin. Savage was the eldest of 3 brothers, the youngest in the family having been taken by Darth Sidious to be trained as a Sith assassin. During the Clone Wars, Savage was chosen by the Night Sisters to be used as a part of Asajj Ventress's revenge plot against Count Dooku. They used an ancient ritual to transform the already Force-sensitive lad into a monster of raw Force energy and sent him to the Count to take the role of apprentice. Eventually, Savage rejected both Dooku and Ventress and ran out on his own. He worked with his brother, Darth Maul, and helped to take over the Mandalorian Death Watch and later the planet of Mandalore itself. Unfortunately, these actions caught the attention of Maul's old master, Palpatine, who saw the brothers as rivals to his powers. He challenged them to a duel, and during this conflict, Savage was mortally wounded and struck down by the Dark Lord. Kit Fisto was a Nautolan Jedi Master born on Glee Nelm at the tail end of the Republic era. During his life, he took 2 Padawans, Bant Irin and Nadar Veb. At an undisclosed time between the Naboo Crisis and the Clone Wars, Fisto was elected to the Jedi High Council and held that title for the rest of his life. He fought in the war as a general, mostly leading underwater missions due to his aquatic nature. At the Clone Wars' end, he was handpicked by Mace Windu to be a part of a strike team meant to arrest Darth Sidious. And though he fought valiantly and lasted longer than his fellow council members, he was finished off in a short time, though rumors of his survival have circulated in recent years. Savage was a pure-blooded Zabraki, granted heightened endurance and endurability by his physiology. The enchantments placed upon him by Mother Talzin geared him to be a juggernaut of physical might, able to overwhelm foes like Adi Gallia and Asajj Ventress through sheer strength alone. He was incredibly fast and agile for someone his size, able to perform great leaps and dodge blaster bolts. During his battle with Obi-Wan on Florum, his arm was sliced off and had to be replaced with a cybernetic one. This arm didn't appear to change much compared to his biological one. Savage may not have been a tank like Vader or Malgus, but he was still an impressive hulk of a man, maybe even a monster. We actually have no idea how old Kit Fisto is. If I had to guess, I'd put him in his mid-40s to early 50s, still in the prime of his life, but also getting close to the end of that prime. Nautolans had extra cartilage in their skulls, which granted them the ability to withstand more blunt force trauma than the average human, as well as an ability to detect the pheromone levels in other beings. Having an aquatic body built to swim through strong currents and fight the resistance of water 24/7 meant his reflexes and muscles were naturally stronger and tougher than human ones. He's taken blade locks with the cybernetic General Grievous, moved faster than Obi-Wan could perceive, and survived a bounty hunter's flamethrower at point blank, which in theory should have done serious damage to his amphibious skin. But Fisto can take the heat. It's a killing blow or nothing. This one is a bit difficult to call. Savage is stronger, Kit is faster, and the durability seems to be about even. Ultimately, I don't see anything significant to turn the tables either way, and declare the two as equals in physical regard. There's quite a bit of variation in the ideas from other Star Wars fans, but they all generally fall into one of 2 categories. Believing Savage is either a big dumb brute with no skill at all, or that he's a cunning duelist outperforming the High Council members. Between the two, I'd have to fall somewhere in the middle, but definitely closer to the latter. Savage was already a highly skilled warrior before his Sith training, having been trained from birth in hand-to-hand combat and being capable of killing a Jedi Master in a short encounter. He mostly relied on his unarmed combat skills and quarterstaff training to get through many of his fights, but I do believe he has a skill in Form 1 Shicho, and more on this form when we get to Fisto. But he was able to momentarily hold out against Anakin and Obi-Wan, even pushing them on their back foot. He defeated Ventress multiple times, killed Adi Gallia, and even stood as Plo Koon's equal for a good amount of time, though he ultimately had to remove Koon's face mask to achieve victory. People like to draw on his battles with Sidious and Dooku as a reference for how bad he is. But remember, these are two of the most skilled and powerful Sith Lords to ever live. I think you can cut him a little slack. Then again, some of these victories I do take with a little grain of salt. Looking at Ventress's track record, nearly every person who's defeated her was someone who could keep up with her speed and break through her defensive with an aggressive assault. She clearly has a weak spot for those tactics. Still, that doesn't necessarily take away from his victory completely. The feat still requires him to be on her skill level and be able to keep up with her speed. Just don't underestimate him, is all I'm saying. There's a lot more to this guy than meets the eye. Kit Fisto was considered to be the poster boy for Shicho combat, though he's also accredited to Ataru as well. Shicho was originally designed to be the basics of lightsaber combat, but at its fullest potential was a deadly form only truly understood by the great masters of the era. The form had a focus on ferocity and unpredictability. I would describe Kit as the eye of the hurricane, controlling the storm and mowing down whatever lay in his path. He paired this off with Ataru for the ability to integrate hand-to-hand combat, and even sometimes dual blades into his form. However, this aggressive approach wasn't his only tactic. When he felt outmatched, like with General Grievous, he laid into Ataru's agility and relied on evasion tactics. This, I do feel, is simply Fisto's deep respect for Grievous's reputation rather than a lack of ability. Kit did have a weakness though, and that unfortunately was single combat. He could take down most opponents seamlessly, but when he had to go against an opponent of equal or greater caliber who could wait out his storm and break the defense, he fell short. Still, he was respected enough by Windu to go on the mission to confront Sidious, and was renowned as one of the best swordsmen of the era. Just going off of skill, I'd say Savage and Kit are even. They have similar feats and have faced more or less the same threats. Unfortunately though, Fisto is exactly the kind of matchup Savage is geared to combat. Someone who's just going to throw himself at him and try to dance around the Zabrak's guard. Savage is going to have to try harder to take Fisto's hits compared to the strikes from someone like Gallia, but he still holds a significant advantage. I award the edge to Savage Opress. Savage was sort of a unique case in his Force abilities. He was given incredible power and potential in the Force, but his lack of training kept him from tapping into it regularly. However, while he was in intense rage, all of that went away. He was able to lift several heavy pillars while being tortured by Count Dooku, break Mother Talzin's spell of loyalty, and get through the Force shields of Dooku, Ventress, Anakin, and Obi-Wan and send them all flying like ragdolls. But even without that rage, he was still able to utilize a Force wave to shatter a Mandalorian prison cell, and utilize a saber throw to behead several criminals. He was also able to telekinetically hold a knife in midair before it hit Maul, showing high awareness and excellent reflex. Far from the big dumb brute that most make him out to be. Kit Fisto tailored many of his abilities to suit his duties under the sea. He could control currents and weaponize the water into high-energy blasts similar to Kinematite, aptly named Force Water Orb. While underwater, he could redirect missiles and move heavy machinery with ease, but even while on land, his telekinetic strength and precision were excellent, and he regularly chained telekinetic strikes into his lightsaber combat. He worked sort of like Obi-Wan, making up for his lack of magnitude with creativity and control. I again see this as being very close. Savage probably isn't going to go into any primal state with this one, and Kit's water abilities aren't helping him on a battlefield of equal standing. I don't see either one being able to hurt the other with force pushes because they've both shown to have very similar levels of strength and control. Really, an argument can be made for either way, and while I don't see this round playing a big round in the final verdict, I can't give a solid decision either. Savage and Fisto are declared as equals in force abilities. The advantage to the victor here is 7 to 10. I think it'll be a close match and an interesting duel to see. The battle will play out like a more dragged out version of Savage's fight with Adi Galea, Kit standing in for her but holding his ground much better. Fisto starts out in an open assault, evading Opress's swings and looking for an opening. He starts using kicks and punches, which Savage responds to in kind. A short-lived fist fight between the two ends when Savage gets a good hit on Fisto, staggers him, and cleaves his blade through the Nautolan's neck. I declare Savage Opress, the Nightbrother, the victor. However, when he was in intense rage, all of that went away. He was able to lift savvy, mate, savvy.